The moment LIC IPO comes, 100%, not 100, 1000%, it is oversubscribed. Yes or no? It is oversubscribed because, so these all constitute macroeconomic indicators which are important for making policy decisions. We say no, IMF, your growth forecast is also a macroeconomic indicator. Very, very important function from out of these two is, one is marking, the second is quality certification. So BIS is doing ever since 2016. Employed, please make a list, box banao, where the Manrega workers are employed, in what kind of jobs they can be, their services can be used. In the past, most of the states are raising funds through this platform so that it is not reflected in their budget. See, understand this concept, you understand, I will explain. Padhoge nahi samajh mein aayega. Suno. Before you go for an initial public offer, for example, I have decided to start a pharma company. Me and couple of my friends decide, chalo ek pharma company lagate hain. Now, we are small players in the market, nobody knows us. If I can get Tata on board, the moment Tata comes into my venture, there is a positive talk about my venture in the market. Suddenly people will start, Oberoi sir has started a company where Tata is also investing. So it creates a positive tempo for my company. Before I go for IPO, if I have an anchor investor, anchor means strength, solid person, anchor investor on board with me, it creates a positive atmosphere about my company. So when I go for an IPO, initial public offer, the chances of more people applying for my share, the chances of people ready to give more money for my shares becomes higher. So that is how the anchor investor helps in creating a positive confidence about the company in the minds of the investor. That is how the anchor investor is important for a company. Okay? That is why he is called also an anchor investor. And as initial investors, they make the IPO process more attractive for investors and instill confidence into them. Anchor investors also aid in price discovery of the IPO. Anything, Pujita? Yeah. No. See, angel investor will come to you if he sees that is a positive prospect. Here he is coming with an intention to raise the, understand the dimension. Angel investor is confident with your product that it will click in future. He is not interested in that. He is come with an intention to increase the value of your share. The guarantee that he will remain for a longer period of time is not there. Once you have achieved the target of increasing the share value, you have done your bit. Understand? So that's how it is. Anchor investors who get guaranteed allotment a day before the IPO opens to the public are normally allotted 60% of the QIB data. आप लोग छोड़ दो, 60% of the qualified institutional buyer quota. QIB data is qualified institutional buyer quota. ठीक है? So whosoever are qualified institutional buyers के लिए जितना भी आपने रखा था 60% of the data a day prior. See, understand, IPO is open for allotment day. अरे बेसिक सवाल है, 3 days. IPO कितने दिन का होता है? IPO प्लीज लिखो यार. आई थिंक मैंने IPO का भी एक स्लाइड रखा है क्या? नहीं. IPO के स्टेजेस क्या है, स्टेजेस ऑफ इनिशियल पब्लिक ऑर्डर, पेमेंट स्टेजेस क्या है. कॉमर्स का बैकग्राउंड कोई नहीं है यहाँ पे? नोबडी फ्रॉम कॉमर्स बैकग्राउंड? Too bad here. Commerce people are getting employed. Huh? All BTechs here? Congratulations. Good. See, understand, LIC का IPO आता है ना, in news, very much in news. The moment LIC IPO comes, 100%, not 100, 1000%, It is oversubscribed. Yes or no? It is oversubscribed because people have confidence in LIC. But my company ABC Limited, nobody knows. So the ABC Limited, nobody knows. Now, how to get a positive tempo in the audience about my IPO? Take LIC on board. That LIC is the 60% shareholder. Matlab, my money is safe if I invest in this company because LIC is one of the strongest companies in the country. So that is how I try to create a positive and price discovery of my IPO. Understand this. Companies with a profitable track record can allocate 50% of the IPO to QIBs. Demand in the anchor category is an indication of the success of the IPO. Understand this particular dimension. Okay? Digital banking units. Modi made a big announcement that 75 digital banking units What are these digital banking units? Anybody? How is it different from the digital dimension of any commercial bank? Will not be there. Okay. Subsidiary of the existing commercial bank. In the budget 22-23, Finance Minister, Her Highness, had proposed to set up 75 digital banking units in 75 districts to commemorate 75 years of India's independence. Right? This is the logic of 75 DBUs. Now, the Reserve Bank of India announced that guidelines for DBUs were given in the year April 2022 following the report of a working committee of the IBA Google karo, Indian Bankers Association. IBA is important from prelims perspective because these fellows have suddenly become active. All your banking exams and all, no? These fellows only do it, Indian Bankers Association. IBA के नेतृत्व में ही होता है. In fact, the RBI exams also, only the interview is taken care by the RBI. Rest all is under the supervision of IBA only things happen. Okay? Now, what it says, digital banking units will be brick and mortar outlets set up by scheduled commercial banks housing a certain minimum digital infrastructure for delivering digital banking products and services, servicing existing financial projects and services digitally. Now, it means that when these DBUs are being set up, they are being set up by the scheduled commercial banks housing a certain minimum digital infrastructure. What is the difference between the existing digital framework and the DBUs is my question. They would be separate entities. That's the only logic. When you are having online banking today, internet banking you are doing now, the internet banking is part of your core scheduled commercial banking only. So, as a facility he is giving you, but when the DBU is there, it is a separate digital banking unit that he has decided to set up. So, it will have a separate entity status as such. So, this you need to understand, and his core area of operation is digital. This you need to understand, that its primary objective is to be digital in providing certain services to the masses. This is the dimension, right? Now, kitne slides hai? 6 more slides. Macroeconomic indicators. Topic number 49. क्या नंबर है? 49. What is a macroeconomic indicator? Anybody? what it is. I know the example, GDP is a macroeconomic indicator, the currency exchange rate is a macroeconomic indicator, your growth rate is also macroeconomic indicator, the size of your economy is also macroeconomic indicator, the openness of the economy is also macroeconomic indicator. Potential of an economy, macroeconomic, no. I am asking you, what is a macroeconomic indicator? What it showcases? Performance. Unemployment is also macroeconomic indicator. Inflation is also macroeconomic indicator. Any economic indication which is important for policy making decisions. Anything related to jobs, if the government wants to do, it should know what is the employment rate. Anything related to money supply, the government wants to take a decision, it should know what is the inflation rate. Anything, some major investment it wants to do in a particular sector, it should know what is the GV of that particular sector to the economy. So these all constitute macroeconomic indicators which are important for making policy decisions. We say, no, IMF, your growth forecast is also a macroeconomic indicator for the investors whether to invest money in that particular country or not. So like this, macroeconomic indicators play an important role in decision making related to that economic sphere of that particular country. And macroeconomic indicators could be anything which have a bigger impact on the overall economy. The repo rate can also be a macroeconomic indicator. Yes or no? The rate at which the bank is giving loans to the commercial banks is also a macroeconomic indicator. Any economic related macroeconomic indicator. Agricultural production can also be, the size of the agricultural production can be a macroeconomic indicator. Any other macroeconomic indicator? Infrastructure kya? Foreign investments coming in, the FDIs, remittance is also a macroeconomic indicator. Okay? What it says, an economic indicator is a piece of economic data, usually of macroeconomic scale, that is used by the analysts to interpret current or future investment possibilities. Very, very important. The data that is important to interpret the current or future investment policies, it is known as the political stability, macroeconomic indication. Your repayment obligations in the past, macroeconomic indicator. How many times your balance of payments, macroeconomic indication. Your current account deficit, your fiscal deficit is a macroeconomic indicator. Okay? These indicators also help to judge the overall health of a economy. Some examples which I have given you. Okay? These are all part of your macroeconomic indicators related data. Okay? Yeah. Debt to GDP ratio. The lower the better, the higher the better. कौन बोला higher? If you are hungry for growth, even if it is higher, that's why our debt to GDP ratio is in a comfortable position when compared to many advanced countries, where the debt to GDP ratio is very high. So generally, it is not that minimum the better, optimal the better. It should not be that your entire growth should not be debt, what you call led. It should be investment led. It should not be a debt led by the company. Okay? The GDP ratio, GDP to debt ratio is the metric comparing a country's public debt to its GDP. By comparing what a country owes with what it produces, the debt to GDP ratio reliably indicates that particular country's ability to pay back its debts. Say for example, if your GDP is 1 and your debt is 0.5, good or bad? क्या हो गया? Good. Good only. If your debt is 1.5 and GDP is 1, then it is bad because your growth, the component of production is not sufficient to pay back for your debt. Understand this dimension, right? The debt to GDP ratio can also be interpreted as the number of years it would take to pay back debt if GDP was used as the only means to pay back the debt. Understand this dimension also. That is why the less dependence on the debt is more good. What is the debt to GDP ratio of India? Economic survey. कल बात करेंगे इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, कल या परसों बात करेंगे इकोनॉमिक सर्वे. व्हाट इज द डेट टू जीडीपी रेशियो ऑफ योर कंट्री? राम, यू डिजर्व टू बी शॉट डेड, क्लोज रेंज, कोल्ड ब्लडेड मर्डर. हाँ, इस टाइम पे तो फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर शुड बी ऑन द फिंगर्स. सर पेज नंबर इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, चैप्टर नंबर दिस, पैराग्राफ नंबर दिस, 7th लाइन फ्रॉम द टॉप, ये लिखा है. ऐसा रिस्पॉन्स आना चाहिए. कब आएगा? जब पढ़ोगे तब आएगा. हाँ, व्हाट इज डेट टू जीडीपी रेशियो? इट मीन्स आउट ऑफ 0.88. So it means that out of every 100 your debt is coming closer to 88 point so and so. So it means that still your GDP is higher than your debt. But in many countries it is touching 140, 150, 160 also. It means their growth is basically led by debts. Debt is a repayment obligation in future. ठीक है? It could be any debt. See, sovereign debt is the best debt to have because it does not have the exchange rate fluctuations playing in between. So that is why sovereign debt is the best debt to have. Okay? But what happens is the domestic people do not have confidence in the economy, they don't invest. Our people are investing outside but not in India. So that's how the dimension opens up. Okay? So it is always advisable. See, foreign debt ka best advantage is government need not pay back compulsorily. Understand this. That is the reason why they don't pay to you. The investors don't invest in their country, they generally go. Why are investors interested in India? Are they getting more money? No, guaranteed money मिलेगा. उसके खुद के country में तो government में tomorrow says sorry I will not give you money. That's the logic. You can't do anything with your government. बाहर का government है तो you can create pressure through your government to pay that money back. So that is how domestic investment is the best investment from the government perspective. Because at max worst come worst situation it can print money and give you. That's the idea. Okay? The higher the debt to GDP ratio, the less likely the country will pay back its debt and the higher its risk of default. It is understood, right? Which could cause a financial panic in the domestic and international markets. Debt to GDP ratio. And now it is 83.1 in the financial year 2023. So it has got a little contracted than what it was. But when we started in financial year 2014, when Modi government came, 67% was the debt to GDP. Now it has become 83. What does it indicate? What does it indicate? More and more money is being raised for the growth perspective. So we are borrowing for the purpose of growth. It has projected India's debt to GDP to remain around 83 till 28 according to IMF April fiscal monitor report, recent report. Okay? So it will remain around 83% in the long term till financial year 2028. Credit to GDP ratio. I spoke about this credit to GDP ratio yesterday. The banks have to take the lead for the growth to happen and not leave it to the money lenders or the unorganized sector to sponsor the loans. So the more the banks come into play, the more the country's growth will be there. So that is how the credit to GDP ratio is very important. Indicates aggressive and active participation of the banking sector in the real economy. So now the homework for you is what is India's credit to GDP ratio. Homework for you is box banao India's credit to GDP ratio. 55, 56 around we are hovering. Okay? It means whatever is your GDP, the credit to that GDP 55-56% is coming through the banking channels. It means when the overall debt to GDP is 88% or 83%, only 56 is coming from the banking channel, remaining is coming from unorganized sector. So the dependence on unorganized sector credit is much more higher. We saw this Prajwala challenge yesterday. What was the Prajwala challenge? The Prajwala challenge was basically trying to bring in new ideas, innovative ideas for developing the rural economy. So innovative ideas for developing the rural economy, for transformation of the rural economy was your 73rd topic called Prajwala challenge. And this Prajwala challenge, we said it is under the program of the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana program, which is also called your National Rural Livelihood Mission, the National Rural Livelihood Mission. So we covered the Prajwala challenge. So now we are covering today the price monitoring of essential commodities. This is related to the agriculture, where we are saying that price is monitored for 22 essential commodities. Please make a note of these 22 essential commodities which the price tag the government is doing. What the government is doing is, it will get the information related to the prices of these 22 commodities from the present 340 market centers. From these places, the information comes to the government to keep a tag on the prices of these 22 commodities. These are not those 22 commodities. Maybe there is a commodity which is not in the MSP list, plus, so do not get confused with that. So this is a separate 22 list. Now it is in news because earlier the government was getting information from 340 market centers. Now the government is trying to achieve the target of the 750 price monitoring centers. So this is the target the government had kept last year, that by March 2023 I will increase the number of monitoring centers from 340 to 750, from where the price is being sent. I will be monitoring the price. And in this, very important from prelims perspective, it is not only the spot but also the future prices of the commodities on a daily basis, not only the price. And one more dimension, retail and wholesale price. So please, from the prelims perspective, both the retail price and the wholesale price tab, at the same time spot price also, and also future price of the 22 what you call essential commodities. So please, you will have to by heart those essential commodities, you need to by heart. Okay? They were getting from 340 centers and they have covered the entire country into sectors. So they have divided the entire country into sectors. So now the government is monitoring the price of these 22 commodities on a daily basis, both the spot price, the future price, at the retail rate and also at the wholesale rate. A question important from your prelims perspective. Chalo, very important, the Bureau of Indian Standards, energy efficiency certificates are given. No, if you go to the BIS website, box banao, BIS website, just visit once the website. Do not spend more than 10 minutes, but visit the website. Just see what all these people are doing, because they may just give a name of one certification in a particular sector, and they may ask which of the following sectors. The BIS has recently given a certification related to energy efficiency, right? So BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, some important facts about it. It is a national standard body of India established under the BIS Act 2016 for the harmonious development of the activities of standardization, marking and quality certification. Please make a note of these three words. One is standardization, second is marking, and the third is quality certification. Very important function from out of these two is, one is marking, the second is quality certification. So BIS is doing ever since 2016. The BIS has been providing traceability and tangibility benefits to the national economy in a number of ways, providing safe, reliable, quality goods, minimizing health hazards to the consumers, promoting exports and import substitute. Now, these sin goods are there, no? the sin goods, basically tobacco and all are considered to be sin goods. Google about the marking standards of sin goods, especially your cigarette packets, your masala tambaku gutka packets. There is a standard specification that around certain percentage of the space has to be earmarked only for warning purpose. So that is how, what is the criteria for those cigarette packets and all, please Google about it. It says certification testing. BIS has its headquarters at New Delhi and its 5 regional offices from where the certification is done. The control over proliferation of varieties etc. through standardization. What is the standardization? Marking and quality control, understood. What is the standardization? Like, can you give me an example? With what? Compare and tell. You said quality certification it is giving and it is doing what you call marking walas, it is doing. Then what is standardization? How it is different from this quality certification? No, standardization is basically if you have, say for example, produced 100 kgs of a particular product which is divided into 250 grams of packets. So the entire standardization has to be there. Standardization related to weight, standardization related to quality. You remember the soaps come, no? Generally the daily bathing soaps, generally 75 grams to 100 grams is the weight of a soap. When it so happened some time back, when I was also a kid, some time back, one person weighed the soap. So it came some 9 or 11 grams lesser than what the company had promised. So he sued that company and the company was forced to pay penalty to the government. How many soaps it had sold in so many years in the past, they kept that as the benchmark index of 11 grams per soap and the penalty was imposed on the company. So that is why now intelligently what the companies are doing, so and so weight at packing, at the time of packing ये weight था, अगर उसके बाद weight कम हो तो I am not responsible for it. So that is how intelligently people. So this is what you call standardization. So the standardization, marking and quality certification, these are the 3 responsibilities of your Bureau of Indian Standards. Okay? Yeah, Nobel Prize in Economics, bank run, we have spoken about it. Nobel Prize in Physics also, please see this here. The Nobel Prize, names not important. The domain where the research was done, what was the outcome of the research from the perspective of science and technology, physics and economics this year are important from UPSC perspective. Who got the Nobel Prize and all, that's not important from UPSC perspective. We will come to the fractional reserve banking. Chalo, now I will tell it here only. What do you understand by fractional reserve banking? Anybody? Fractional reserve banking? Come on. How many of you are hearing this term for the first time? Most of you. Excellent. See, when somebody is depositing money in the bank cannot give the entire money as loan to somebody. It has to keep certain amount of money as reserve. CRAR की हम बात करते हैं. Capital risk to adequacy ratio. The same way, the entire deposit also cannot be extended as loan. Why? Because if the same customer comes back for withdrawal, so that is how certain amount of the assets have to be kept as reserve. So that is why fractional reserve banking. It means at the end of the day, the bank has to have certain amount of money, the deposits, the assets of the bank in the form of liquid asset, so that it can be immediately given to the person who has deposited with you. So the world over, the global economies generally follow the fractional reserve banking system. So this is what we are doing. It says banks lend out a significant portion of the deposited money to others, earning interest on those loans. They are only required to keep a fraction of the total deposits as reserves to meet the day-to-day withdrawal demands. So it means that out of the deposits also, they cannot lend the complete deposit to somebody in the form of a loan, which is an asset to the bank. So certain amount of deposit also has to be kept as reserve to meet the day-to-day withdrawal demands. So these people did certain amount of research on how the fractional reserve banking has what you call created a money multiplier effect in the economy. So that is how these people got what you call the Nobel Prize in economy. Very important scheme, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. I think about this we spoke initially also. I think Mahatma, the role of the Gram Panchayat also I think I have discussed. It is about basically, try to read this and make a note. I am sure most of you might be knowing 100 days of guaranteed wage employment in a financial year to every very important rural household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled labor. Please underline the word unskilled manual labor, volunteer to do adult members, rural members. Every rural household, very important, and 100 days of guaranteed employment to all the adult members of the rural household who volunteer to do unskilled manual labor. So these words are important. Okay. Now, providing not less than 100 days of unskilled manual labor as guaranteed employment in a financial year to every household in rural areas as per the demand. What is the major objective? What is the major objective? It is only employment. What is the major objective? And where are these Manrega workers employed? Please make a list. Box banao. Where the Manrega workers are employed, in what kind of jobs they can be, their services can be used. And one more dimension, if they are not, if somebody is volunteering and the government is not able to provide them work for 100 days, what is the compensation that the government has to pay? Please make a box. And one more dimension is related to the role of Gram Sabha. What is the role of Gram Sabha in Manrega? That we'll discuss also. It very important. It determines the order of priority of works. It means which work has to be done before this final authority is the Gram Sabha, right? In the meetings of the Gram Sabha, keeping in view the potential of the local area, its needs and local resources. It is not the district administration. It is the Gram Sabha that determines the order of the priority of work related to Manrega. Monitor the execution of work within the Gram Panchayat. Monitor is also the responsibility of Gram Sabha, the execution of work. It is a primary forum for the conduct of the social audits of the works that have been done. Very important. The role of social audit is also given to the Gram Sabha. It provides a platform to all the residents to seek and obtain all relevant information related to Manrega. Very important role, because it is through this only the Gram Sabha tries to convey to the members of that particular Gram Panchayat which works are there, how many days of employment is available, what would be your waiting period for employment. Okay? So basically in some ways they are maintaining the master role. Okay? So what works are available, what is the time? Say if you come today and make an entry in the register that I am willing to do I am volunteering to do the unskilled manual labor, till when you can expect a call to come and do the work. Okay? It is not that today morning you dress up to go to do the work and you get the work on the same day. It does not happen like that. Okay? Now, legal right to work. The Act provides a legal right to employment for adult members of rural households. So it is a legal right, not a fundamental right. Please make a mark in your notebook. It is not a fundamental right to seek employment under Manrega. It is just a legal right. Right? Now, polity, what is the difference between fundamental right and a legal right? Yeah. Quality Control of India. Again, this was also in news. See, these are the entities that joined hands to create the Quality Control of India, and I would suggest for your own benefit Google about this Ashokam also. Okay? Now, the Quality Control of India was set up through a PPP model as an independent autonomous organization in 97 with the support of Government of India, and the industry was represented by 3 premier institutions. A prelims question may come, which were the three premier institutions under whose consultation the quality control of India was set up? One is ASHOKNAGAR, second is CII, Confederation of Indian Industries, very important body, very important body, and Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, FICCI. FICCI was established in the year post-independent or pre-independent? It was pre-independence, just before Bhagat Singh was executed. This forum was physically present. It is said that this is the forum that masterminded not to stop the hanging of Bhagat Singh, because this is where the seeds of capitalism in some dimension were sown in India, and Bhagat Singh was a communist, or you can say socialist, not a communist, a socialist propounder, right? So they wanted to remove the seeds of socialism from our country. So the FICCI, it is said, they joined hands with the British authorities. That is the reason why when Gandhiji met Lord Irwin, he could not convince him to stop the hanging of Bhagat Singh, because there was a larger aim behind it, because these people wanted the business, the capitalism to come into India. Okay? Very important entity. Please Google about FICCI also from your prelims perspective. DIPP is the nodal agency, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Policy and Promotion is the nodal agency of the quality control of India. QCI got established under the Societies Registration Act 1996 to provide accreditation services in various sectors for product, services and persons. Very important. It gives accreditation services, very important, to persons also. This is the one of the biggest difference between the Bureau of Indian Standards and the Quality Control of India. Chairman of the council is appointed directly by the Prime Minister on the recommendation of industry to the government. The appointment of the QCI chairman is done by the Prime Minister of our country on the recommendation of the industry, which is led by all these three entities, the ASHOKNAGAR, the CII and also the FICCI, we call it FICCI. So these are the three entities which these are very strong industrial lobbies. So this is where we talk about pressure groups, right? We talk about pressure groups that have an impact on the government decision making. This is one of the biggest pressure group when it comes to industrial sector in our country. All the three, out of all the three, this has got the maximum say today, the Confederation of Indian Industries. Okay? Palm oil was in news because one institution or association by name Asian Palm Oil Association was in news. The palm oil is basically the world's most consumed vegetable oil is the palm oil today. Very important information. It is used extensively in the production of detergents, plastics, cosmetics and biofuels. Very important, cosmetics also. The palm oil is used extensively in detergents, whatever greasy feeling you get with the cosmetics and the detergents, it is primarily the basic ingredient being the palm oil. Indonesia and Malaysia together account for almost 90% of the global palm oil production. Indonesia and Malaysia are the world leaders in the palm oil production. Top consumers of the commodity are India, China and the entire European Union. India is the largest importer of palm oil in the world, followed by China. Around 8 million tons of palm oil is imported from Indonesia and Malaysia, while other oils such as soya and sunflower come from Argentina, Brazil, Ukraine and Russia. Very important. The soya and sunflower oil come from these countries. Please make a note: Argentina, your Brazil, Ukraine and Russia. While palm oil is coming primarily from Indonesia and Malaysia. If you see the economic relations between Indonesia and India and Malaysia and India, the import of palm oil is one of the top products in the commodities traded between these countries. Okay? Asian Palm Oil Association Very, very important. They may give a prelims question, in which of the following groupings or entities India and Pakistan are together. Entities like SCO, entities like SARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, entities like Asian Palm Oil Association. These are some of the very few entities where both India and Pakistan are common players. It is, and other entities, obviously the United Nations, World Trade Organization, WTO, IMF, all these international entities are always there. It is formed by an apex edible oil industry associations of 5 major palm oil importing countries. Please underline the word importing. The countries who are dependent on palm oil, these are the countries who have formed this association, and not the countries who are exporting palm oil. Okay. So, palm oil importing countries including India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal. Though China is one of the largest importers of palm oil, China is not part of the Asian Palm Oil Alliance. Please make a note. China is not part of the Asian Palm Oil Association, though it is also one of the largest importers of palm oil, right? Asia accounts for around 40% of the global palm oil consumption, while Europe accounts for 12% of the palm oil. Indonesia and Malaysia, I have told this. India is the largest importer of palm oil in Asia, accounting for 15% of the global imports, followed by China 9%, Pakistan 4% and Bangladesh 2%. So, maximum import of palm oil is done by India, which is equivalent to 14% of the global imports. It is very, very high, understand, very, very high. It means in a way we have complete dependence on import when it comes to palm oil, right? So, now make a box, why India is not able to cultivate palm oil, why the dependence continues, understand this, why India is not able to, why there is complete reliance on what you call imports only. The way we have the same reliance for the import of crude oils and all, crude oil because it is naturally not available. So, that is how it is understood. But why is it that a product which can be cultivated, why India is struggling with the cultivation of this particular product? And related to palm oil production in India, what all initiatives the government has taken? Palm oil production initiatives by the government. The palm oil production related initiatives that have been taken by the government, please make a box and try to Google about it. The FSIB, very important, because this has replaced a very important institution called BBB, Bank Board Bureau. Earlier the BBB was there, making important appointments to the higher executive authorities of the banks. Now it has been replaced by FSIB, Financial Services Institutions Bureau. Financial Services Institution Bureau. It has replaced the Bank Board Bureau, constituted by the central government for the purpose of appointment, recommending persons for appointment as whole-time directors and non-executive chairpersons. But understand this, it does not do the appointment. It only recommends persons for appointment. Appointment is done by the government only. In which of the following functionaries of the RBI are government appointees? Understand, in the RBI, anybody who is a deputy governor or a governor, they are all appointees of the government of India. Even if an officer has risen from the ranks, like from manager to chief general manager, if he has become executive director, only till executive director they are in the roles of RBI, they are RBI employees. The moment somebody is elevated to deputy governor's position, he is supposed to relinquish the RBI appointment and take the government appointment, right? And in RBI there are 4 deputy governors and 1 governor. Now out of the 4, 2 people are promoted from the ranks of the RBI and 2 people are directly appointed by the what you call government. As a matter of practice, not written anywhere, out of the 2 which are directly coming from outside, one is generally a commercial bank expert, the second person is an economic fields expert. That is how people like, this fellow had come, forgetting his name, when Raghuram Rajan was there. One more person had come who is an economist after Urjit Patel. At the time of Urjit Patel also he was there, I am forgetting his name. So he had also come. So out of the 4, 2 DGs come from the ranks of RBI, 2 are appointed directly by the government, one come from the commercial bank expertise, second comes from the economic field expertise, and obviously the governor is appointed directly by the what you call government, government only, not from the ranks. There is no person who has become a full-time governor of RBI from the ranks. The only exception is Narasimham. Please make a note. Narasimham, when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, this fellow was made acting governor of RBI, who was an RBI career employee. The only person from the ranks of RBI who was made acting governor, not a full-time governor, but he was governor acting for a long period of time. Okay? So these kind of questions may be at times tricky to you. Why I am saying is, these people also have some say in here. Now, for the appointment as whole-time directors and non-executive chairpersons, understand these two words. One is whole-time directors, not part-time. Whole-time directors and non-executive chairpersons on the boards of financial services institutions. It's a government body set up under the Department of Financial Supervision, which is under the Ministry of Finance. Please make a note, DFS, Department of Financial Services. This fellow, whosoever is the secretary of this department, no, he commands complete authority on all the banks in the country, including RBI to some extent, including, though RBI is an independent authority, but if a call comes from the Secretary of Department of Financial Services to the chairman of SBI or to the chairman of HDFC or any other bank for that matter, he will get up from the chair and take the call. Okay? So that is the power an IAS officer holds at that particular stage of service. At a very high service ranks, people are there. Okay? Your governor of RBI, present governor, he was minister of secretary, he was secretary finance, minister of finance mein he was secretary. So that is how, with the experience that he was having as a secretary of the finance ministry, he was elevated to the appointment of governor. Okay? So that's how, because of the experience that they carry with them. Right? Now, very important, business reforms action plan. Very important what you call department for promotion of industry and internal trade. Department for promotion of industry. Very important word they have added is industry, internal trade. It has categorized states and union territories. Please note the categories: top achievers, aspirers, and emerging business ecosystems, based on 301 reform points covering 15 business regulatory areas. So the reform points, 301 reform points covering 15 broad areas. This particular entity, which is called Business Reforms Action Plan under the Department for Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade, is categorizing states based on these 15 broad regulatory areas and dividing the trade states into top achievers, aspirers, and emerging business ecosystems. So these are the 4 criteria in which all the states and union territories are divided by this particular entity. It includes areas such as access to information, single window system, labor, sectoral reforms spanning across the life cycle of a business, etc. So these are the various broad areas on which these particular categorization has been done. So now your homework is 2022 on this particular thing, which is the state, which are all the states rather which have been classified as top achievers. He may ask you a question, which are the South Indian states which are in the top achievers category. So that is how a question might be framed for preliminary examination. And he may also ask you which are the various categories into which the states and union territories are divided. This may not come in the exam, but this portion may come in the exam in some or the other way. Okay? Very important, extra budget borrowings, we call it also off budget borrowings. We call it off budget borrowings also. Why they are called off budget borrowings? Because they are not voted, they are not included in the, no, in the net borrowings. Off budget borrowings are there, they are not included in the calculation of fiscal deficit, but in the calculation of net borrowings of the government, this is counted for extra budget borrowings. If you see the balance sheet of the government, below the balance sheet there will be a paragraph with a side heading extra budgetary provisions. So this is called off budget borrowing or extra budget borrowings in the calculation of fiscal deficit of the government. Because is anybody bothered what is the overall borrowings of the government? Nobody is bothered. People are only bothered what is the fiscal deficit of the government. So that is how government has used this as a strategy to reduce the fiscal deficit by not showing it in the balance sheet itself. So that is how people will not question generally whatever is the what you call offset borrowing or the what you call extra budgeted borrowings beyond the budgetary provisions. But in the calculation of fiscal deficit they may not be accounted for, but in the calculation of overall borrowings done by the government, this is also calculated. Okay. Now, Center decided to lift a virtual freeze on borrowings by some states with large off budget borrowings. Now, it had so happened it in the past most of the states are raising funds through this platform so that it is not reflected in their budget, in their fiscal deficit. So that is how what the central government had done was it had created a complete freeze on any off budget borrowing by the states. So now that freeze has been lifted, that is why it has come into the news, right. Extra budgetary resources are those financial liabilities that are raised by the public sector undertakings, very important, with for which repayment of entire principal and interest is done from the government budget, both the principal repayment and also the interest repayment of whom the public sector undertakings. Now, such borrowings are made by state owned firms to fund government schemes, very important. Whatever the government is releasing schemes, for funding those schemes, generally the public sector undertakings or the state owned entities, they take this particular route of extra budgeted borrowings, right, but are not part of the official budget calculations. That is what I told you, they are not part of the official budget calculations, basically while calculating the fiscal deficit, right. But when you calculate the net borrowings of the government, that is when the extra budget borrowings also comes into play. Okay. See, it is excluded from the fiscal deficit calculations, but at the same time are added to the total debt of the government. So whenever you are calculating the fiscal deficit, the extra budgeted borrowings or offset borrowings is not included, but when you are calculating the total debt of the government, at that time the extra budgeted borrowings are included. It has however decided to strike off at least 25 basis points from the net borrowing ceiling of 3.5%. See, listen, I will explain this. Earlier there was a 3.5% ceiling on the state GSDP, is gross state domestic product. Whatever was the GDP of the state, on that 3.5% up till only the states were allowed to take the what you call off budget borrowings or extra budgeted borrowings, only 3.5%. Now what had happened, it has however decided to strike off at least 25 basis points, 25 basis points is 0.25%, right, basis points from the net borrowing ceiling of 3.5 GSDP of these states in 23 in case the off balance sheet borrowings in 22 exceeded 25 BPS of projected GSDP in the current fiscal. It means that if at all in the previous 2022, if your off budget borrowings had exceeded 0.25% of the projected GDP in the current fiscal, even that this can go beyond this particular percent. So up to 3.75 also you can go, provided it has gone in the fiscal year last. It means that in the last fiscal year, if your borrowings crossed this particular limit, so by 2.5% you can cross this limit in this particular year also. Basically trying to give you that window, not to punish you because of your bad what you call economy in the last financial year. So it can go up till 3.75. The states can't borrow beyond the annual limit set by the central government under Article 293(3). Please make a note of the Constitution. 293 is very important article with respect to financial relationship between center and the state. And as per Article 293 subsection 3, the central government or the union government puts annual limits on the state government how much money they can borrow. Such loans have now been made part of the state's net borrowing ceiling if the loans are being serviced from the budget. They have to service from the budget. और कहाँ से budget करेंगे? So that is how they have been made part of the state's net borrowings. I told you, no, net borrowings. ठीक है? Now, very important, agriculture census. The 11th agriculture census was carried out recently. All the major decisions in the field of agriculture are taken basis on the deliberations done in the agricultural census only, right? The 11th agricultural census was launched in the country, is conducted every 5 years. This is the periodicity of your agricultural census. Agricultural census is the main source of information on a variety of agricultural parameters at a relatively minute level, such as the number and area of operational householdings, their size, class-wise distribution, the land use, the tenancy and cropping pattern also. Please underline cropping pattern, underline tenancy, underline operational holdings. What is the quantity of operational holdings in the country today? Operational size of land holdings today. Google this information from agriculture is very important. Ministry of Agriculture site में जाओ, in that what we do, a column रहेगा, open that column and see what all are there. So very important, the agriculture census is what is giving you all the information related to the operational holdings related information, the class wise distribution, the land use, the tenancy and very important, the cropping patterns also. Okay? The first time that data collection for agriculture census will be conducted on smartphones and tablets so that the data is available in time. So digitization of the agricultural census data is happening. So for the first time they are using smartphones and tablets for collating the information, collection and collation of the information. Okay? Very important, again it's been in news. This fellow, क्या नाम है, Parameshwaran Iyer, he is the person who was the brainchild behind your Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, has been made the good CEO. Who is the chairman of Niti Aayog? తెలుగు में కావతే చదివితే ఉన్నమతి పోయిందంట. So the chairman is the prime minister. Okay, when I was a student, I used to track, not only UPSC student, generally also I used to track which important IAS officer is moving from which department or which ministry to which ministry, because I had that interest, because knowing if one person moves in some place to some place, what changes will happen in that domain of his expertise, you can guess. Knowing that person, if he had done that particular thing, so that is how over a period of time you may develop that, because you are maybe too early to develop that particular habit, but once you get into that, your knowledge levels will deepen related to bureaucracy. Because if you are reaching at a stage where you are tracking the movement of senior IAS officers who are shifted from one department to other departments and all. If you remember, one though I was not born at that time, but in one of the memoirs I read, Subramaniam, K. Subramaniam, father of your Jaishankar, when Indira Gandhi got re-elected in 1980 for the first time after she lost to Morarji Desai, and certain other governments were formed for a short span of time. When she came back in 90, the first transfer she did was she fired this fellow, Jaishankar's father, from her Ministry of Defense because she was not comfortable with him in some dimensions. That's how understand how the prime ministers, that it is known to be the first, when she entered the office, that day she ordered this fellow has to be removed from here because maybe she felt in some dimensions he is responsible for her downfall or whatever it is. So you will understand things at that deeper level. Niti Aayog, as we all know, it is basically a think tank. That's what we say. They may ask you the basic difference between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog is Planning Commission was planning the things also. It was doing the financial devolution part for a particular plan also. Niti Aayog is not doing anything like that. It is only a recommendatory authority. But from the mains perspective, write a question challenges to the functioning of Niti Aayog. From the mains perspective, after prelims, we will take. You will see me more frequently after prelims because that is my forte. So where we will discuss about what are the problems or the challenges that Niti Aayog is facing today. The biggest challenge the Niti Aayog faces today is non-availability of data, because if a think tank has been established and if you do not give data to that think tank, it is like keeping a dog for guarding and not feeding that guard. There is no point, because it is if it dies of ill health, there is no point feeding keeping a dog. So Niti Aayog is basically hungry of data because the data that is supposed to reach him for making plans and other things for the government is not coming in. Okay? Now, National Institution for Transforming India, better known as Niti Aayog, was formed via a resolution of the Union Cabinet. It means that it is not a statutory body, it is not a constitutional body, it is only an executive body through the resolution of the Union Cabinet in 2015. Planning Commission का भी same था, Planning Commission का भी same था. That is why these are called extra constitutional bodies. ठीक है? The government constituted the Niti Aayog to replace the Planning Commission, which had been instituted in 1950. The Prime Minister is the chairperson. The Vice Chairperson is appointed by the Prime Minister. Currently, there are 3 full-time members of the Niti Aayog. 4 Union Ministers are nominated by the Prime Minister as ex officio members. Special invitees are also nominated to the Niti Aayog. The 4 Union Ministers who are appointed or nominated to the Niti Aayog, please see the ministries from where they are coming. Which 4 ministers? Union Ministers. Generally, the cabinet ministers are there. Generally, the Home, Defence, Foreign Affairs and Finance. These are the 4 people who are generally nominated, but see, there is a one small change there. Please see that. Yeah, ENAM, Government E-Marketplace, ENAM. Understand, ENAM is nothing but a e-trading portal. That's all. ENAM is nothing but a pan-India electronic trading portal which networks the existing APMCs, agricultural produce marketing committees or mandis, to create a unified national market for agricultural commodities. Understand, very importantly, Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium SFAC is the lead agency for implementing ENAM. Please make a note of this statement. The Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium, it is the lead agency of the ENAM under the aegis of Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. So it is basically like a stock market of the agricultural commodities. So that is why it is called a e-trading portal. Some other things, the market facilitates farmers, traders and buyers with online trading in commodities, right? The ENAM markets are proving popular as the crops are weighed immediately and the stock is lifted on the same day and the payments are cleared online. Very, very important. the stock is weighed immediately and the stock is lifted on the same day. This is very important dimension of the functioning of Ekam. On the Ekam platform, farmers can opt to trade directly on their own through the mobile app or through registered commission agents. The Ekam is linked with 1000 APMCs in 18 states and 2 union territories with over 50 lakh farmers. In prelims, instead of these 18 states, he will tell all. Don't get confused. It is still not accepted by all the states and union territories. Only 18 states are on board the Ekam, and he is trying to tell that 1000 APMC mandis have come on board with respect to Ekam. It has been proved to be a great success. Basically, they are trying to remove the middleman. Whenever, if at all, I don't know if you have been to any vegetable mandi, generally the retailer goes to mandi after 6 o'clock in the morning, but the wholesalers go to the mandi at 3:30 or 4 in the morning when the auction happens. And when the auction happens, the farmer is not directly participating in the auction. The farmer is made to stand onto a side. The person, middleman, has already purchased the stock of goods from the farmers, maybe say 100 kgs of tomato at the rate of 2 rupees per kg. Now what is happening in the auction, this middleman who has already purchased at the rate of 2 rupees from the farmer, he is not putting the auction at 2 rupees. The auction base level would be 4 rupees or 6 rupees. And you will see at the end of the day, the tomatoes are sold at the rate of 10 rupees per kg. But what did the farmer get? The farmer got only 2 rupees per kg. So with an intention to remove this menace of the middlemen from the mandis, the government decided to go for a Ekam. So that is how electronic trading platform where there is no middleman. That is where the farmer and the buyer are meeting on the farmer and the buyer are meeting. The farmers, traders and the buyer are meeting online where the middleman is eliminated. That is how the welfare of farmer and also the buyer is ensured. Okay? That is how it is important.
So does Ekam have a both perishable and non-perishable?
Yes. Well, see, understand, when you go to mandi, there are certain items like onion. It is generally though perishable but not immediately. Potatoes, that considered to be a little, garlic is there, ginger is there. So these kind of items are known to be a little with a higher long life. Okay. Chalo, unicorn startups, we had studied about them. Just in case if they ask, though it is AIM plus, the term was coined by so and so person. The Prime Minister of India highlighted that the country has reached a landmark figure of 100 unicorn startups with a valuation of more than, very, very important. So the value of the unicorn startups, 100 unicorn startups is closing to 300 billion. Unicorns are privately held venture capital backed startups that have reached a value of $1 billion. What is a venture capital? Who is a venture capitalist? Who is supporting a startup with a good idea with a strong possibility of making it big. He is called a venture capitalist. He is called a venture capitalist. He is basically investing the money behind the idea. So that is why it is called as a venture capitalist. And any startup which has crossed, the turnover has crossed 1 billion, very, very important, dollar, not rupees, $1 billion, it is called a unicorn startup. So in India, the 100 unicorn startups, their value has crossed 300 billion. It means that even if I take average, each unicorn startup has crossed 3 billion mark. So that is the biggest achievement that India has done in the past. The term was coined, they are very rare and require innovation. Because of their sheer size, unicorn investors tend to be private investors or venture capitalists, which means they are out of the reach of, very, very important, retail investors. So that is how lobbyism comes into play. That is how lobbyism comes into play. Okay? The difference between the venture capitalist and the anchor investor is the anchor investor is invited before the IPO goes, but in case of them there is no IPO, because that is the reason why they are keeping the retail investors outside the reach, so that the entire shareholding is controlled by them. Okay? The valuation of unicorn is not expressly linked to their current financial performance, but largely based on their growth potential as perceived by the investors and venture capitalists who have taken part in the various founding rounds. Very, very important. Expressly linked to their, not linked to their this thing, but to their potential growth rate. So that is how whenever you are talking about a unicorn, they are talking about the capacity of that idea to have that potential growth in the future. Okay? Yeah, government e-marketplace, e-nam is different, government e-marketplace is different. Again this section came, section 8, very, very important. This e-marketplace, because the name government is there, understand it is a public procurement portal. Public means not general public, public means this way public, okay, not private, public, that way. Okay? So the government e-marketplace, it owes its genesis to the recommendations of two group of secretaries made to the Prime Minister in 2016. It is a 100% government owned section 8 company set up under the aegis of Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce and Industry for procurement and goods and services by central and state government organizations. Very, very important. So the basic difference between e-nam and government e-marketplace is, e-nam is basically for retailers and the government e-marketplace is basically for the government, state, central and also certain public sector undertakings also. Okay? So this is basically for them to go and procure certain items. Okay? Recently the cabinet decided to widen the mandate of the government e-marketplace by allowing it to register cooperatives, including the private cooperatives, as buyers on its platform. Very, very important word, buyers. Very, very important word, buyers. So now the cabinet has decided to extend the what you call facility of using the government e-marketplace by the cooperatives, including the private cooperatives, as buyers on the platform of e-marketplace, government e-marketplace. Currently the portal is primarily meant for purchases of goods and services by ministries, departments, central government, state governments and various firms and entities run by them. Say for example, the Ministry of Defence is there. The Ministry of Defence provides lot of rations to the troops. The entire troops food arrangements have to be taken care of. The arms and equipments have to be taken care of. So whatever they purchase, these departments of Ministry of Defence will use this portal for purchases. That is how the various ministries, various departments, the state government, central government and public sector undertakings are using this government e-marketplace for purchasing various goods and services. Now this platform has been opened even also for the cooperatives. Okay? Bad Bank, this was also in news. Bad Bank is nothing but an asset reconstruction company. What is a bad bank? A bank that is not functioning well is called a bad bank. Then the bank that buys the NPAs of the other banks to clean their balance sheet. Understand this dimension. Say for example, SBI as a bank is there. If there are NPAs, NPA का definition पता है ना, 90 days now. 90 days, if the loan is principal or interest remains unrealized for a period of more than 90 days, it is called a NPA. If NPA is more than for a year, it is called a, if up till a year, if NPA remains unrealized, it is called a substandard asset, doubtful asset, loss asset. पढ़ाया था ना? मैंने नहीं, किसी और ने पढ़ाया था. हाँ, क्यों भूल गए? If something up to a year, if it remains NPA, it is called a substandard asset. If an asset remains as substandard for up to a year, it is called a doubtful asset. And an asset that has been classified as a loss asset, or that the asset cannot be realized by the auditors or the management of that particular bank, it is called a loss asset. Because why this standardization is required is, based on that the provisioning norms have to be done. What is a provisioning norm? क्या हो गया, इतना साइलेंट क्यों, ऐसा क्यों देख रहे हो यार मेरी तरफ, मारोगे तो नहीं ना? हाँ, व्हाट इज द प्रोविजनिंग नॉर्म, बताओ भाई, पढ़ी लिखी फौज. प्रॉम्प्ट करेक्टिव एक्शन, राहुल, हाँ बोलो क्या होता है प्रॉम्प्ट करेक्टिव एक्शन में? प्रॉम्प्टली करेक्टिव एक्शन इज टेकन सर. हाँ, these are basics, no, I am not asking any. मैं PCA में घुस के परसेंटेज नहीं पूछ रहा हूँ यार, PCA क्या है पूछ रहा हूँ. बैंकिंग से 5 to 6 क्वेश्चंस विल कम प्रीलिम्स में, मैं बता रहा हूँ, और 1 से 2 क्वेश्चन में RBI लिख के आएगा, और उस समय मेरे को याद करना, कुछ ऐसा मंत्र पढ़ के जाना कि कम से कम बैंकिंग रिलेटेड में ओबरॉय सर की आत्मा मेरे अंदर आ जाए और मेरे सारे करेक्ट टिक हो जाए. हाँ, PCA फ्रेमवर्क. एक काम करो, तुम्हारा नोटबुक फ्लिप करो और टॉपिक्स लिखते जाओ, मैं बोलता हूँ, मुश्किल है यार तुम लोग. आई डोंट हैव टाइम टू टीच ऑल दिस थिंग्स. PCA नॉर्म्स, प्रॉम्प्ट करेक्टिव एक्शन, प्रोविजनिंग नॉर्म्स, PCA प्लीज लिखो. असेट क्वालिटी रिव्यू, ये सब एग्जाम में आएगा. क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ एसेट्स, rate cut, basically it carries out rate cut, quantitative tools, no, quantitative tools, qualitative tools हम बात करते हैं ना. quantitative tool is restricting the, basically restricting or increasing the availability of money supply in the market. Whenever the US Federal Reserve carries out rate cut, it means now the money is available cheaply. It is called quantitative easing, so that easily the people can take more and more loans. Quantitative easing, calibrated tightening, I have covered those 4 dimensions, no? Accommodative stance, neutral stance, calibrated tightening, और क्या था? कल पढ़ाया है. हाँ, you guys are not revising, I am afraid. UPSC को पता है तुम लोग नहीं पढ़ोगे करके, और जब तुम नहीं पढ़ोगे ना वही पूछेगा. एक वेबसाइट है, नाम है नाबार्ड, ओपन द नाबार्ड, और नाबार्ड में RFID, नोट वही लिस्ट में नोट करो, नाबार्ड RFID, RIDF, sorry, not RFID, RIDF. What is RIDF? Rural Infrastructure डेवलपमेंट फंड, RIDF. कौन बता सकता है व्हाट इज RIDF? हाँ, इफ द कमर्शियल बैंक्स, हाँ एक और पॉइंट, प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग्स, प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग, चेंजेस टू द प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग्स, RRBs पढ़ो. डिफरेंस बिटवीन स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स एंड द पेमेंट बैंक्स, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. छोटा सा पॉइंट लेकर के तुमको एक सवाल पूछेगा. पेमेंट बैंक्स एंड स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स. आजकल माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूशंस इज इन न्यूज. माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूशंस, प्लीज मेक ए नोट ऑफ दैट. एक और लिखो, बॉक्स बनाओ. विच ऑल इंस्टीट्यूशंस आर फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस. What is a financial, who all are considered as financial institutions? Please make a note. Long term reverse repo, it was in news. MSS, marginal standing MSF, marginal standing facility. But understand the essence of these steps. I am telling you, you will be shocked if you do not understand the essence. Question घुमा देगा prelims में. He has to either add one word or delete one word to confuse you. Simple. Take care. Yesterday there was a question in the paper, Wood's dispatch, no, 1854. उसमें एक ऑप्शन मैंने दिया था English language only, but it is done both in vernacular language and also in the English language. बहुत लोगों ने गलती किया. And each province also I gave a option to be in the each province. It is only a result of not reading the topic finely. Okay? So do not commit those mistakes. Or points have, I will send the message also. Chalo. Now coming back to bad bank. See, listen, whenever a bank is giving loan to somebody, there is a high probability that that loan will not be repaid back by the individual. Are yes or no? That is how we talk about the risk weighted assets. For a loan where there is no collateral, the risk is given the highest percentage. Personal loan, you take personal loan from the banks, right? Interest rate is higher. At the same time, you do not have to give any collateral, right? But housing loan is easy, because if you do not pay the EMI, he will come and occupy the house. The bank will come and occupy the house. So that collateral, he has got the documents with him. Two-wheeler you take, you do not pay, he will come and take your two-wheeler. Maybe he may not get the entire money back, but he will get some money back. Some collateral is there. Now what happens is, over a period of time, in the balance sheet of the banks, lot of these assets become bad. And if the bank has to continue keep showcasing these assets which have turned bad in the balance sheet, the provisioning ratio of the bank keeps increasing. Provisioning means the moment an asset becomes a loss asset, there is a particular amount of money that has to be kept aside from the existing money of the government. So that is the reason why, when this way lot of money has to be provisioned by the bank, the overall money availability will the bank for further lending will reduce drastically. So with an intention to clean up the banks, the government is proposing a concept of bad bank. What this bad bank will do, it will purchase all the NPAs of all these bad banks and keep it with it and try to realize the value from these bad assets over a period of time. So that is the reason why they are giving the word asset reconstruction. So they are trying to reconstruct the asset. They will give related topics. Make a note. Haircut is a related topic. Haircut is a related topic. Not the haircut of Shah Rukh Khan. Okay? Some other haircut. There is something known as loan restructuring. Restructuring of loan. Questions have come in the past from these domains. Haircut was there in the UPSC twice, not once. एक से दो बार पूछा गया haircut. ठीक है? So try to understand these things. Now, this bad bank is responsible to buy all the NPS from the bank. Two things have happened. In that case, the asset reconstruction company or the bad bank, its balance sheet is bad from day one. Yes or no? Its balance sheet is bad from day one because it has purchased bad assets, right? Now, but what had happened at the commercial bank level, their balance sheets got cleaned up. When their balance sheets got cleaned up, now the provisioning requirement which they were doing earlier, they need not do that. If they need not do that, it means suddenly the availability of money with the banks increased for further lending. Or yes or no? So, if a question comes, the establishment of bad bank will result in the increase of money supply with the banks or reduction of money supply in the bank. The answer is increase in the money supply in the bank. Because there is an increase in the money supply in the bank, now it will lead to inflationary trend, because suddenly the commercial banks and the other banks got money to be given. Now what the bank does, because there is too much money to be given and customers are less, it will reduce the interest rate. And the moment it will reduce the interest rate, more people will come to buy. So the interest rate is reduced. It means the money supply in the market has increased. And when the money supply in the market increases, it means that too much money is following too few goods, it will lead to inflation. So that is how a linking question will come to you in the prelims. Okay? So, so as we discussed, it is basically bad bank is an entity that will buy the NPAs of commercial banks and tries to recover at least a part of the value of such particular NPAs. Usually banks discount the book value of NPAs when they are transferred to a bad bank. After that, whatever recovery is possible from the bad bank, from the bad loan becomes the earnings of the bad bank, not the commercial bank. Uska role khatam hai, right? Unlike commercial banks, bad banks do not undertake deposits, lendings or usual banking operations. Please make a note of this statement. The bad banks do not venture into any deposit, any loan or any banking transactions. It means it is not customer one to one. उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है. The bad bank is basically like a you can say loan restructuring agency of the commercial banks. Okay? Now another name for a bad bank is your asset reconstruction company. Non-performing asset, we all know these dimensions. For the short crops, it is 2 crop seasons. For a long crop, it is 1 crop season. For other loans, it is 90 days. 90 days. And for the account remains out of order in respect of a overdraft or cash credit, if the account is declared as out of order. These are the 4 major dimensions. Okay? So now when we talk about NPAs, we talk about the provisioning norms also. As I told you, up to 1 year, this is your substandard asset, this is your doubtful asset, and this is your loss asset. The moment an asset is declared as loss by the auditors or the management of the bank, whatever is the amount, 100% provisioning has to be done. If you had extended loan to Vijay Mallya for 9,000 rupees, if that fellow has defaulted and not paid you, the bank auditor or the bank management decided to write it as a loss asset, 9,000 crores have to be kept aside by the bank. It cannot lend that 9,000 rupees to anybody. This is over and above 9,000 which the bank already lost. It means that the availability of money with the bank up to the tune of 9,000 rupees has come down. So with that intention only the bad bank concept came, so that this provisioning norm, it is like a penalty on the bank. It is, see, the best way to penalize a bank is to restrict its loan dispersals. बैंक को अगर तंग करना है, RBI के पास एक सिंपल टूल है. RBI will tell no further expansions, no more credit dispersals. ये 2 लाइन का अगर मेल RBI से आ जाएगा, बैंक will start shivering. If the RBI tells okay 10 crores what you call penalty, 20 crores penalty, उसको कुछ खास फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, because this bank size balance sheet being very very big. But if the RBI says no further credit dispersals, no further what you call expansions, and also no increase in the pays and perks of the management of your institution, the moment these 3, it means that the bank is under prompt corrective action. That is what the PCA norms की जो मैं बात किया था, prompt corrective action. These are the corrective actions where we are not allowing them to expand their business, we are not allowing them to extend loans to anybody, we are not allowing the top management of the banks to increase their pays, perks and other allowances. Okay? So that is how the RBI controls. The primary responsibility for making adequate provisions for any diminution in the value of loan assets, investments or other assets is that of the bank management and the statutory auditors, not RBI. Please make a note of this statement. The responsibility to do all these things is the responsibility of the same bank management and the auditors of that bank. Just remember these 3 things. Remember these 25, 40 and 100 substandard asset, NPA for 1 year, substandard between 1 year to 3 years, declared as loss asset by the credit what you call the auditors or the bank management. The provisioning norm 25%, 40% and 100% and 100%. ठीक है. HDR special drawing rights again in news because Chinese in the weightage of the Chinese yuan in the basket of HDR has been increased to 12.78% if I remember it correctly. I think होगा इस 12.28%. This is the weighted average of your HDR. HDR is a special drawing right, the currency of IMF, but the biggest point is this is not a printed currency. The currency is not printed, it is just a calculation of the basket of 5 currencies. Maximum weightage is to US dollar, followed by euro, followed by Chinese yuan, then Japanese yen, and lastly pound sterling 7.44. This fellow will give tough competition to dollar in future. When your children will be preparing for UPSC in future, this fellow will be somewhere here, if not there, definitely here. Okay? So by the time the things will change, and maybe we will also be there. Maybe if Modi comes couple of more times, maybe we will also be there. Okay? What is a HDR? As we said, the HDR is basically a reserve. HDR is known to be the alternate reserve currency of the world. Please. And when we talk about, हाँ एक और बनो उसमें लिखो लिस्ट में forex reserves में composition of the forex reserves, what all we have, how much is amount of gold, how much is amount of the foreign currency, and how much is amount of the HDRs that we have as part of IMF. IMF का reserve tranche, remember the reserve tranche of IMF, the reserve tranche position RTP, reserve tranche position of the IMF. International institutions, their report publications, their findings, very, very important. 3 to 4 questions will come from this domain only. International economic institutions I am talking, not general world bodies. UN से 2 question आएगा, 100% आएगा. The main 6 agencies, specialized agencies, or the funds and the program that the United Nations runs, उसमें से 2 questions minimum gunshot will come. So the reading of the entire United Nations chapter from international relations perspective is very important. Okay? Now, when we talk about HDR, we are talking about HDR as an, now you know that the international accepted currency is your dollar. So we are now thinking of making HDR as the international reserve currency of the world. Just in case if something happens to the dollar in a short span of time, people can immediately convert their dollar into HDR. Always remember, the value of 1 HDR is higher than a dollar. Always remember this point. The value of 1 HDR will always be higher than a dollar. Anybody Google what is the value of 1 HDR today? How many rupees will make 1 HDR? I think around 100 के आसपास होगा. 1 HDR is equal to how many rupees? Try to Google it. One HDR is equal to how many rupees? 102. क्या है? कितना है? इतना टाइम क्यों लग रहा है? One HDR is equal to, नहीं, it cannot be. Cannot be. It has to be more than the dollar. कहाँ देख रहे हो? How come? What happened to HDR suddenly? One second. Give me a second. Triple 1.5. So 1 SDR is equal to 1.5 rupees. And $1 today is equal to around 80 odd rupees. Okay? So that's how the SDR will generally remain higher than the dollar. Now coming back to SDR, understand the reserve currency has to be stronger than the universally accepted currency. This dimension you need to understand, because if the reserve currency is weaker than the universally accepted currency, it will have a backlash in the entire economy. So that is why the value of SDR will be a little higher. Now SDR is an international reserve asset, not a currency, created by the IMF in 1969 to supplement its member countries' official reserves. Now as part of your foreign exchange reserves, we are also holding certain SDRs. If we are holding SDRs, it is very clear that we are also holding, understand this, we are automatically holding certain other currencies also. But majorly our foreign exchange reserves composition is made up of the US dollars only, right? The value is based on a basket of 5 currencies allocated to IMF member countries in proportion to their relative share, which is called quota share in the IMF. Now write IMF quota percentage of India. IMF quota percentage of India. Go to the IMF site and इसमें देखो किसका quota percentage IMF का कितना है. And one more thing, if you remember, if you go to the IMF site and see which all countries have given their quota for this particular year, you will realize that US is the defaulter. You will realize that US is the defaulter. He does not pay on time anyways, because the problem is not that he does not want to pay, the problem is the maximum share of the IMF quota is of the US. So that is the reason why he takes time to do it. To date, a total of SDR so many billion equivalent to about 943 billion have been allocated. Just see, 660 billion is the SDR value. This 660, when they are converting into dollar, it is going to $943 billion. That means the SDR value is higher than dollar. The export criteria, a currency meets the export criteria if the issuing country is an IMF member or a monetary union that includes IMF member and one of the top 5 world export controllers. Now understand, for including your currency here as the basket of SDR, you have to be your currency or your economy has to meet these 2 criteria. One is the export criteria, where the export is more than import. The second is a freely usable criteria. It means a currency meets the freely usable criteria if it is widely used in the payments for international transactions. So if your currency is meeting these 2 criteria, then only there is a possibility of your currency being added into the basket of SDRs. Okay? Chalo. Fractional reserve banking, we have covered this. Additional tier 1 bonds, very important. Additional tier 1 bonds. So the 81 bonds. What will happen if you are not there? There's a famous song, no? Nuvuleka. See, the 81 bonds, understand, as I told you, bond is a debt instrument, and in the category of debt instruments, the 81 bonds come the last category. Why? Because these are the bonds which are known to be perpetual in nature. Once issued, these bonds continue to exist. The bond holder continues to get the interest on the bond that has been released. Now the problem with them is, there is the risk element is very high in these bonds. That is the reason why in the categorization of the bonds category, the 81 bonds are the last. It means the risk is the highest. So that is the reason why whenever these 81 bonds are released, the person who is purchasing these 81 bonds also knows that the risk is higher. But because the moment the risk is higher, the benefit is also maximum. So people do tend to buy these bonds also as a debt instrument. The moment the company or the organization or the bank that has released these 81 bonds in the market, for some reasons the valuation of that particular company goes down, that is when the issuer of this bond can recall the bond from the market. Otherwise, generally you see bond has a maturity period, yes or no? Bond has a maturity period of 1 year or whatever it is. Whosoever is holding a bond for till that period, he continues to get the interest, and lastly kiske haath mein rahega, whosoever goes and deposits it to the insurer, he will get the principal back and any interest which is due. But with the 81 bonds, there is no maturity period at all. The bonds keep rotating hands, and people who are holding that bond for that particular point of time continues to get the interest. Because these are the bonds without any maturity date, that is the reason why the risk is higher. And whenever an organization, bank or a company that issues these 81 bonds, for some reasons if it wants to call, that is why it is called a call option. The moment it wants to call, it can call back this particular bond and pay that particular person who is holding that particular bond. This is what exactly happened with the Yes Bank case. And the moment a company or a bank calls for the bonds that it has released as part of 81 bonds, it showcases negative on the economic strength of that particular institution. Okay? 81 bonds, the Bombay High Court has quashed the write-off of the 81 bonds worth 8,500 crores issued by Yes Bank Limited. What the Yes Bank people did was, the bank management and the auditors of the Yes Bank very smartly, they wrote off bonds worth 8,400 crore rupees. Silently they wrote off that these bonds have got no value today because of the risk associated. The 81 bonds are unsecured bonds, please make a note. They are unsecured bonds that have perpetual existence, or what we call tenors. Tenor is the duration. Tenor in technical banking language is the duration. Okay. Now, in other words, these bonds issued by the banks have no maturity date. There is a call option which can be used by the banks to buy these bonds back from the investors. So, that is when the banks will execute the call option to call back this particular bond that it has issued. Now, what the Yes Bank did, it tried to write off the entire 8,500 crores of money that it had raised in the past as part of issue of the 81 bonds. So, this is how the bank tried to cheat through the conniving with the management and the auditors, trying to write off the 81 bonds. The call options allow banks to redeem them after 5 or 10 years. It cannot happen instantly, right? Now, but banks are not obliged to use this call option and can opt to pay only the interest on those bonds for eternity. So, 1, the bank can call back. 2, but minimum 5 to 10 years time should have lapsed, and the bank is not forced to call off. It can continue to exist in somebody's hands. 2, banks issuing the 81 bonds can skip the interest payouts for a particular year or even reduce the bond's face value without getting into hot water with their investors, provided their capital ratios fall below certain threshold levels. These thresholds are specified in their offer terms. Now, understand this. Whenever I what you call sold a particular bond, I can reduce the value of the bond without having any problem, because in the offers of term I can say that if my capital ratios fall below a particular, that is what I told, the economic strength of the bank erodes for some reasons, if this thing fall, I will reduce the value of the bond. So, that is how it is a negative sentiment on the investor. But in the initial offer of terms only, it is mentioned, if my capital ratio falls below this percentage, I have every right to reduce the value of the bond. If the value of the bond reduces, obviously the interest thereupon also gets negatively affected. Okay? 3, if the RBI feels that a bank is tottering on the brink and needs a rescue, it can simply ask the bank to cancel its outstanding 81 bonds without consulting its investors. Now this you understand. This understand this line, tottering on the brink and needs a rescue. Now we know the bond issued by a bank is a liability. With me? Because it has raised money issuing bonds. There is a liability. Now the RBI says that if you are on the brink of collapse, I told you unsecured loans lowest in the rung of debt securities. The RBI says that if you are on the brink of a collapse and if you need a rescue, you can simply ask the bank to cancel its outstanding money. It means if an investor is holding S Banka 81 bond today, the S Bank can say, my financial strength is on the brink of collapse, I do not have money to pay you. That is where the dimension of unsecured bond comes into play. So that is when your bonds will not get the value that I promised you at the time of issue. The moment the Yes Bank told that I cannot pay you, the moment the Yes Bank told I cannot pay you and wrote off the 8,400 crores worth of 81 bonds that were issued, the investors went to the court. And the investors went to the Bombay High Court. They got a stay from the Bombay High Court that quashed the write-off. It means the court says the Yes Bank has to pay them. You find a methodology how to pay them, but you cannot tell, though it is an unsecured loan, what happened if 1,000 hands of changed, and today when 1,000 first person bought this bond, if he finds that nobody is good. But what I told you, the risk is higher. In 81 bonds, the risk is higher. That is the reason why only people who have the appetite to take the risk, only those people purchase these bonds, because they are purely unsecured in nature, right? This is what has happened to the Yes Bank's 81 bond holders who are said to have invested around 10,800 crores of money on the 81 bonds that were issued by the Yes Bank. So this is how this entire case opened up. These bonds are perpetual in nature, they do not carry any maturity date, they offer higher returns to investors, but compared with other vanilla debt products, vanilla debt product is plain, vanilla is not the ice cream. Basically they are trying to tell you that the vanilla ice cream is known to be the most plain ice cream, the basic level of ice cream if somebody has to tell. You can graduate butterscotch, chocolate and all, these are all graduations. Now in the debt instruments, what it is saying is, though it is offering higher returns to investors, but compared with other vanilla debt products, means other debt products where there are no complications, these instruments carry a higher risk as well. So when you compare it with a normal debt instrument, when you compare, though they give you higher returns, they have a higher risk also. If the capital ratios of the issuer bank fall below a certain percentage, or in the event of an institutional failure, the rules allow the issuer to stop paying even the interest also, or even write down these bonds, as happened in the case of Yes Bank. So this is what is the entire story of Yes Bank. A question on 81 bonds is 99% expected in this particular prelims paper. 1. Unsecured, 2. Perpetual, 3. Higher risk, 4. Higher return, last in the hierarchy of what you call debt instruments, just above equity but lowest in the debt. See, debt means bank loan is also a debt, secured loan is also a debt. So in the debt category, the 81 bonds are in the least category, but just above the basic equity stocks that the company sells. Okay? अच्छा लिखा भी है, these bonds are subordinate to all other debt and only senior to equity. ठीक है? Yeah. No, bond is not issued by an individual. Corporates will issue, banks will issue, financial institutions will issue. Selling for individual is different. What I am saying is issuing authority I am talking about. From the perspective of issuing authority I am talking about. Yes Bank did one more error, as he is telling. they sold it to individual retail investors also. What happens is, if the 81 bonds are sold to individual investors, retail investors, because retail investor does not have the purse and authority to fight for his right, but when if it is sold to institutional investor, he can at least fight and go in the court of law and all those things. The biggest mistake apart from this, not only writing off, they had sold these 81 bonds to the retail investors also. That is also not generally permissible. That is also not generally permissible. So that is how, see, Yes Bank has been under the radar of RBI for the last 4-5 years. 4-5 साल से RBI के radar में है. If somebody is holding Yes Bank shares, please try to do away with it. ठीक? A SEBI probe found that the bank facilitated the selling of 81 bonds from institutional investors to individual. This is very important. Initially जब तुमने रिलीज किया, you sell it to institutional investor, qualified institutional investors, no, QIIs, your FPIs, they are all institutional investors. Now a SBI probe found that the bank facilitated the selling of 81 bonds from institutional investors to individual investors also. It found that during the process of selling the 81 bonds, individual investors were not informed about all the risk involved in the subscription of these bonds. So the SEBI investigation also found that Yes Bank represented these bonds as a super FD and as safe as FD to the investors. So this is where the problem came. This is where the SEBI found that when the bonds were open for sale to woo the public to invest in this bond, they were declared to be as safe as FD and super FD. So this is the nomenclature that the Yes Bank officials used to attract the people to purchase these particular bonds. Okay? Salt sector crisis is also important. The salt sector crisis, very important, certain dimensions. Salt is in the central subject listed, item 58 of the union list, the 7th schedule of the constitution. Before that, certain facts and figures. Gujarat produces about 28.5 million tons of salt per year, which is more than 80% of the total country's production. So the highest salt producing state in our country is Gujarat, right? The projects such as the Run Sarovar, a project to build a freshwater lake in 5,000 square kilometers of this area, will make about 50,000 people jobless. This was in news because this is the area where maximum salt production also happens. So if you convert this lake into a freshwater lake in 5,000 square kilometers of this area, then definitely the 50,000 people who are dependent on the salt production in this particular area will get negatively affected. Now very important, major salt centers, these are the 4 major sources of salt in our country from the hierarchy: salt, sea brine, lake brine, subsoil brine and rock salt deposits. The maximum is coming from the sea brine. Okay? So this is where the salt is majorly coming into is being produced in our country. The sea brine, the lake brine, the subsoil brine and the rock salt deposits. Sea water is an inexhaustible source of salt. Please make a note. Not exhaustible, it is an inexhaustible source of salt, and salt production along the coast is limited by weather and soil conditions. Understand this, very very important. The salt production along the coast is limited by weather and soil conditions. So the major salt producing centers are marine salt works along the coast of Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Maharashtra, Odisha and West Bengal. Inland salt works in Rajasthan using lake brine and subsoil brine, the Sambar lake, the Nava, the Rajas, the Kuchaman, Sujangarh and Pahalodi, not important. The salt works in Run of Kutch using subsoil brine. This is where the subsoil brine is being used, and rock salt deposits at Mandi in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Please make a note of this last point. The rock salt deposits are happening in Himachal Pradesh Mandi, and the subsoil brine is happening in Rann of Kutch, and inland salt majorly in Rajasthan, and the marine salt is happening elsewhere. Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, coastal areas, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha and West Bengal. If you see, they are all coastal states. So that is how marine salt or sea brine we call it. May not be the weather and soil conditions may not be conducive. It would be there, but the production capacity would be less. Yeah. We spoke about this tax buoyancy. When there is a positive change in the revenue collection, tax collection without increasing the tax percentage is known as a state of tax buoyancy. Okay? Now, very important, it depends on the size of the tax base, the friendliness of the tax administration that will ensure payment of taxes timely, and the rationality and simplicity of the tax rates. Very important, the tax has to be rationally applied and it should be very simple to collect and calculate and collect both. This will automatically lead to tax buoyancy. If the rates are not rational, if they are irrational, if the government says 80% of your revenue that you will generate has to be paid as taxes, people start evading taxes. Okay? It has to be rationally put and it is to be very simple. It should be understood by a common man very simply why and how much amount of tax he is paying or supposed to pay. So that will only lead to positive dimension towards the taxation. Friendliness of the tax administration. Now the friendliness of the tax administration is being ensured through income tax direct taxes authority का website में जाओ, and what are the various certificates given to individual taxpayers, diamond certificates, golden certificates, silver certificates, platinum certificates. What is the amount of tax an individual has to pay to get a particular range or category of certificate? What is the amount of tax somebody has to pay? Now people are also talking about when there are people who are high taxpayers, they should get special accesses at special places. Like if they are traveling by air, they should not be, people who are paying very high taxes should not be allowed to stand in the common line with the common man, because he is contributing to the nation very majorly, so he should have a separate access to go. If common places like, they are trying to create a positive atmosphere for people who are actually paying maximum taxes to the country. This is what they are trying to say. Okay? So it is a good step, not a bad step. Tax elasticity. What is this? Refers to? It refers to the change in the tax revenue collection as a result of change in the tax, right? For example, how tax revenue changes if the government reduces the corporate income tax from 30% to 25%. Now, please make a note, box banao. Corporate tax structure kitna hai? What is the corporate tax structure? Which are the various cesses which the government is collecting at this point of time? Which all cesses are there? CESS. There is a difference between tax and a cess. A cess is collected for a specific purpose and the collected amount goes into that particular account only. Which are the various cesses which are in vogue as of now? Agriculture cess, education cess. Now education cess is applied only to high income, uska bracketing hai. What else? Green cess. What else? Swachh Bharat cess. Make a list of all the cesses. Tax devolution, very important. Okay? We spoke about this Laffer curve also, no? He says that if you charge very high in tax rate, it will incentivize the people not to work. अगर बहुत ज़्यादा टैक्स लगा दोगे फिर तो मैं काम करना ही बंद कर दूंगा, क्योंकि फ़ायदा क्या है, आई एम वर्किंग हार्ड, द गवर्नमेंट इज टेकिंग मनी, so that is the reason why it will not incentivize me to work. So the better way, that is why rational tax proportion is very important. As such, it suggests that lowering tax rates motivates people to earn more money, resulting in greater tax revenue. So this is called tax elasticity, how the revenue collection is affected positively or negatively based on a change in the tax structure, the rate of taxation also. ठीक है, it's called tax elasticity. हाँ, इंश्योरेंस पेनिट्रेशन एंड इंश्योरेंस डेंसिटी, ये थोड़े पुराने टॉपिक्स है, मतलब 2-3 years old टॉपिक्स, but now that you know nowadays some 1 or 2 questions are coming from old dimensions also. Insurance penetration and insurance density. Insurance penetration is measured as the percentage of insurance premium to the GDP. So whatever insurance premium is paid, if you divide it by the GDP, you will get the insurance penetration percentage in our country. It is measured as a percentage of insurance premium to the GDP, and insurance density is the premium to population, where insurance premium divided by population. Now homework for you is insurance density and insurance premium. What is the percentage of India? The insurance density and the insurance premium. The IRDAI data shows that India's insurance penetration, मैं दे दिया, क्या homework करोगे? Penetration is 4.2%. In terms of penetration, India is far behind the global average of 7%. And in terms of the penetration, India is ranked 20th in the year financial year 2021 and 2022. Now your homework is to find out the insurance density. Insurance density. So for the 4.2% of the GDP is the amount of insurance that is being paid. But believe me, for a country like India who does not believe in insurance, because we all keep in the hands of the mother god, the god will take care of all of us. So that is how 4% achieving is also a big success. Okay, 4% is also a big success. Why? Because till very recent past it was wavering anywhere between 1 to 1.5%. Now 4% coming means it is actually a big achievement. Insurance density increased to $91 in financial year 2021-22. What does it mean? The per capita insurance, the amount of money that everybody is paying as insurance on an average is $91, while life insurance density increased to $69. The remaining around 22 is the other insurances other than life, vehicular insurance, house insurance, fire insurance, all those other insurance. It means in the density, the life insurance is higher than other types of insurances. Globally, the overall insurance density stood at 874. Just see where is 874 and where is 91. So that is how we have lot of distance to travel when it comes to insurance penetration also and insurance density also. And India's rank is 27 in terms of the insurance density. So both when it comes to insurance penetration and also insurance density, we have a long road to travel. Okay? How the insurance penetration or density has a positive or negative effect on the economy? Positive effect? See, generally when you book a railway ticket, no, उसमें नीचे से ऑप्शन आता है, ऑप्शनल होता है, that would you like to take insurance? 99% we say you don't want to. Aircraft का भी same procedure है, 300 odd rupees or 400 odd rupees you have to pay to secure your life when you are in the air. But what generally we do is we do not take insurance. Probably the time has come that we have to make it compulsory for achieving insurance penetration or increasing the insurance density. The thing is, as he says, insurance brings in a element of confidence in the economy, where if things go wrong, somebody is there to take care. See, understand, it is only creating a product in the economy. If you create more products like this, nowadays, if you have ordered Swiggy recently, once the order is complete, 2-3 messages will come. One, the food was delivered on time. Would you like to give any tip to the person who has delivered food to you? Now, do you want to rate how the food is? Do you want us to save this as a future transaction to recommend you as and when you need? So, understand, they are trying to make this as an interaction between you and him, trying to generate the economy. So, these are all having positive effects on the economy. Okay? There is no, it is not far that because gig economy, we spoke about gig economy, right? People who are not getting any social benefits. Maybe the burden of gig workers may also be passed on to the customer. Every meal that you order online, not only the delivery charges, the social security charges to that particular fellow may also be deducted from us. It may happen. In a country like India, anything can happen. But the primary responsibility should be of the employer, Believe me, the company makes huge profits. That is how unicorn startups, I say, nahi hua hai. Whatever is the food that you are ordering, more than 25-30% of the cost of the food the company gets as the margin. And see how intelligently he is taking the delivery charges from you. It means he is not doing anything other than providing the platform and taking 25-30% of the cost of the food as his revenue, profit, whatever you call it. Just imagine, if you have ordered 600 rupees, he has already got 200 rupees out of it. He neither paid any tax, whatever GST is liable, he will pay, and he is not paying anything to the driver. He is only paying the delivery charges he is putting on to you. And is he giving any salary to him? Nothing. So, understand this dimension, how these people have created products escaping the social liability of these people. Okay? And one more dimension, if a customer gives a negative feedback of a food, he will penalize the hotel guy. So, understand. So, mera kuch bhi nahi hai other than the platform. I have to maintain my platform up and above. That's all. Only hiring people, giving them responsibilities, giving them some handsets and taking care. I am not saying they are not spending money. They are also investing money in the entire business transaction, but the amount of profits that they are making is huge. It may not be what you call understood by us at individual level, but just see the population. See, 5 years down the line, not even 5 years, I think 3-4 years down the line, Swiggy was never even dreamt of. 5 years down the line, if mother prepares the food, it is prepared, you eat. Otherwise, you go out and eat, or you go out, bring and then eat. These were the only 3 options available. Now, neither mother cooking is happening, neither you are going out is happening. The food is coming to you is happening. So that is how our lifestyles have changed. Chalo, the trends in agriculture, again from the economic survey, what it says, the performance of the agriculture and allied sectors has been buoyant over the past several years. What is the meaning of the buoyant here? Buoyant in the sense? Here, what is the meaning of buoyant here? The performance of the agriculture and allied sector has been buoyant over the past few years. Buoyant in the sense above the sea level. Basically, it is floating, it is not sinking. Basically, trying to say that it is floating, it is not sinking. It means it is doing okay, not great, but it is doing okay. The private investment in agriculture increases to 9.3% in 2021-22. This is the most important point of the slide. Private investment in the agriculture is increasing. The MSP for all mandated crops fixed at 1.5 times of all India weighted average cost of production since 2018. Very, very important line. Private investment in agriculture is greater than the public investment. This is a very important point, don't commit mistake here. In food grains production, oil seeds are greater than pulses. The production of oil seeds are greater than pulses. And in agriculture to GVA, the crops are the highest, followed by livestock, and lastly it is forestry. So the crops is on the top, followed by the livestock, and lastly it is the forestry. In agriculture to GVA, contribution from the supply side, no? We spoke about GVA yesterday. So the crops are the highest contributors, followed by the livestock, and lastly the forestry. Institutional credit to agricultural sector continued to grow at 18.6 lakhs crores in 2021-2022. Very, very important. Institutional credit to agriculture has grown to 18.6 lakhs crores. Okay, 18.6 lakhs crores. Food grains production in India saw sustained increase and stood at 315.7 million tons in 2021 and 2022. The free food grains to about 81.4 crore beneficiaries under your NFSA for 1 year from January 1, 2023, and about 11.3 crore farmers were covered under the scheme in its April-July 2022-23 payment cycle. Organic farming being promoted through farmer producer organizations under the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. Very, very important. The organized, what you call organic farming. In the organic farming, please make a list of top performers in the states. Organic farming, very important. And Niti Aayog is doing something related to organic farming. So please make a note on that also. A question might come. What are the basic various efforts that the Niti Aayog has been doing in the recent past in the field of organic farming? India stands at the forefront to promote millets through the International Year of Millets initiative. 2023 is the International Year of Millets. So India is the front runner in promoting millets as the staple diet. Okay. Indexed funds, I spoke about this index fund yesterday. Basically, whenever a fund is created based on the complete index, like BSC index, like NSE index, if the entire stock exchange is traded as a fund, it is called an indexed fund. What it says? An indexed fund is a fund which tracks the performance of an underlying index like the Nifty or the Sensex. Nifty is your National Stock Exchange, Sensex is your Bombay Stock Exchange. Good. Instead of trying to beat the market by selecting individual stocks, index funds aim to match the performance of the overall market or a specific market by investing in all the stocks in that market. So if you are investing in the Nifty index fund, it means that whatever 1600 companies are listed on the Nifty, you are buying the shares of all the companies. So that is how when you do this, the risk will go down. Basically, you are diversifying the risk. This means that an index fund will have a portfolio of stocks that closely resembles the company's composition of the entire index it tracks. When one puts money in an index fund, that cash is then used to invest in all the companies that make up the particular index. This gives investors a more diverse portfolio than if they were buying individual stocks, right? So that is how your portfolio will become completely diversified. Index investors do not need to actively manage, very, very important, do not need to actively manage the stocks and bonds investments as closely, since the fund is just copying a particular index itself. So the moment index is going up, automatically your funds are going up. If the index is going down, your fund is also going down. This is the reason why they are called passive investing. Please make a note. The question will come, what is passive investing? Passive investing is where you are dynamically not tracking the performance of each and every stock that you have purchased. Okay? So this is called passive investing. Index funds charge far lower management fees than the actively managed funds. Warren Buffett, a famous investor, says that index funds are a safe way to save for retirement. An index fund is a portfolio of stocks or bonds designed to mimic the composition and performance of a financial market index. Very, very important topic. Indexed funds. There is one more INDEF, no? ETFs are also there. Exchange traded funds. Please Google करना इसके बारे में. Gold ETFs is one of the most famous ETF. Exchange traded funds. I have told you to make a list of articles to be covered. No, exchange traded funds. ETFs. Exchange traded funds. ETFs के ऊपर भी एक क्वेश्चन एक्सपेक्टेड है दिस टाइम, especially the gold ETFs, especially the gold ETFs. The UNCTAD, basically this institution was developed basically for the developing countries, for supporting the developing countries. This particular institution was established. Understand, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development is an intergovernmental organization within the United Nations Secretariat that promotes the interest of developing countries in the world trade. So the UNCTAD is basically promoting the interest of the developing countries in the world trade, right? So that is when the primary objective of the UNCTAD is to formulate policies relating to all aspects of development, including trade, aid, transport, finance and technology. All these dimensions this particular agency is responsible to take care of. It was created in response to concerns among the developing countries that existing international institutions like GATT, now replaced by the World Trade Organization, IMF and the World Bank, were not properly organized to handle the particular problems of developing countries. It means these institutions were designed primarily to take care of the developed countries. Because of this, the United Nations felt that I need to create an organization that takes care of the developing countries when it comes to the world trade. So whenever countries like India, China and certain other Southeast Asian countries, whenever we have a problem with functioning of WTO especially, we always go and knock the door of UNCTAD. Okay? The UNCTAD would provide a forum where developing nations could discuss and address problems related to their economic development. India is one of the most active, India and China happen to be one of the most active members or participants on the platform of UNCTAD. Monetization plan we have covered yesterday, brownfield projects, anchor investor also I think I have covered yesterday. With this probably we have come to the end of today. One more article, please make a note. The Nostro and the Vostro account, please make a note. Nostro and the Vostro account also please cover, very important from your examination point of view. The reclassification of MSMEs has happened. The reclassification of MSMEs, please see that classification also. Debt sustainability we have covered. Counter cyclical, pro cyclical we have covered. IPOs we have covered. Windfall tax, debt to GDP ratio we have covered. एक DRT, Debt Recovery Tribunals and the SARFAESI Act, ये दोनों पढ़ो. IBC, DRT and the SARFAESI Act, SARFAESI, SARFAESI Act, SARFAESI, SARFAESI Act, DRTs. Then the IBC code, certain changes have been made. IBC code mein when you study the difference between financial creditors and operational creditors, there is one more entity within the IBC called Committee of Creditors. Please see about that. Certain changes have been made related to insolvency professionals, the IP professionals, insolvency professionals. Just see that what are the changes. Priority sector lending I've not discussed. See that. एक सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स का बैंक लिंकेज प्रोग्राम बोल के रहेगा. self-help groups, bank linkage program. 2-3 years old concept, but may appear. Self-help groups. One more related to lead bank scheme. Please read about that also. Lead bank scheme. Self-help group, bank linkage program, and the lead bank scheme. Very, very important. One more, yeah, the Kisan credit card, KCC, very important. And read about NPS, new pension system. It was in news because people were fighting against the NPS. IBA, I told you. FRBM Act 2003, read through it. FRBM Act 2003, please read through that. Yeah, these MO, M1, M2, M3, the money supply, please read that. Money supply में से question आएगा. I think with this we should be mostly, we would have covered all the topics. If I feel any more topics are there, I will try to share the topic details with you. I think around how many topics we have covered otherwise? We have crossed 100 mostly, okay. So maybe around 25 more topics I will send it across. Just give me 1 day's time. I'll sit on that and around understand economy 15 to 18 questions will surely come. Out of that 30% will be difficult. Difficult means if you have in-depth knowledge of that particular issue, then only you can appear. And mostly the remaining 70% would be easy and moderate. So try not to commit any mistake in the easy and moderate questions. If you can do that, if you can get 12 to 13 questions right in economy, you have got 26 marks, not less. 26 marks is a good amount. Economy generally comes in a beautiful combination of concepts and current affairs linkages. में आएगा, ठीक है. So try and get as many right as possible in economy. As I told you before also, polity target should be 100%, economy target should be 70 to 75%, history 60 to 65%, geography 80%. These are the 4 pillars of prelims. If you can achieve this percentage of target, prelims becomes a cakewalk. Prelims becomes a cakewalk. But yes, environment and ecology, SNT, these two are known to be game changers. These two are known to be game changers. This year environment, I am expecting anywhere between 18 to 21 questions. So I think Vidhay is taking the environment. He will dive deep into the subject, don't worry. So he will cover. So do not miss any of his classes related to rapid revision. Minimum 18 is the minimum that questions will come from environment. Okay? So try to be attentive. These 3, I think from tomorrow history is coming. If somebody who feels, he or she feels that they are weak in history as a subject for prelims, my sincere suggestion not to miss these sessions. 3-4 days you have history, right? So try not to miss any sessions related to history also. Okay? Yeah. Anything else? We'll have a 1 hour break before we come back for our IR class. In 3 hours, IR document I will upload in some time, maybe in 10-15 minutes when I go down. I have to just see it once and then I will upload the document. Other than that, anybody wants to ask anything, they are free to ask. How beta? 1000 bits, the document is ready, fine reading is happening. Maybe tomorrow afternoon tak 1000 bits is ready. It's a consolidation of the last 1 year of whatever has happened in the market. Some grammatical mistakes here and there are there. I have put somebody on the job. Maybe it will take, maybe by tomorrow morning it should be over. Yesterday night we were working on it. We had reached fine reading till 400 odd questions. So I think she has continued working on that. By tomorrow afternoon I will try my best to give that to you. Yeah. So with this, the RRP, the 1000, the grand test, the aim is to bombard information as much as we can in a span of 10-15 days. I am sure, don't worry. If somebody has been very attentive in the class, covering the current affairs which we are sharing, weekly tests you are writing as part of mentorship. If somebody has been doing that, correctly writing the test series that various test series that we are running, believe me, you will be satisfied at the end of your prelims examination. Don't worry, you will perform well. Go to the exam with confidence that I am prepared well. Okay? Do not go with a negative mindset ke mera nahi hoga shayad. Don't worry. Okay? And especially people who are first timers. So understand, prelims is an art. It is not a science. I have seen people clearing prelims year after year without fail. They have learnt that art. So try to understand what is that art. Okay? And 3 to 4 questions ऐसे होंगे, everybody, you knew the answer correctly but you will put a wrong answer and come. Try to avoid that. That will be the decider question, believe. That will decide whether you are inside or whether you are outside. So tell yourself, I will not commit a mistake in a question which I know is the answer. What is the best strategy is, once you read the complete paper starting से end तक, say for example, your weak area is history. Unluckily, for some reason, your series started with history. It may happen, very much possible it may happen. In that case, do not start with that subject. Flip over, go to the last or 51st question, or you see whichever area is your strong. Generally, now the questions are coming in sequence. Polity, once it starts, mostly polity questions, something like that, they are following. So whichever area you feel you are strong at, try to start with that particular area to give you confidence initially. Now it is a double-edged sword. Tumhara strength area, that part came difficult. So now it is a double-edged sword. So try to understand, your mind should be at ease when you write the prelims exam. First set reading 1 to 100 is over. You have to immediate bubble those answers. Do not wait till the last for bubbling the answers. Do not commit this mistake. First reading over, in the textbook, in the answer book, you have ticked that this is the answer. So read the question, read the answer once again, confirm, bubble it. So after 45 minutes or 1 hour, first reading should have been over and first bubbling should have been done. Now you see how many are sure shot correct. For example, you feel 40 are sure correct. It means 80 marks you are there. Now when you go for the second reading, be very careful in selecting the optional in the doubt between 2 questions, and try to put those bubbles then and there only. Then and there only. There is no second reading and then bubbling. Only the first reading, then bubbling. In the second reading, immediately whenever you feel this is the answer, bubble it. And as a thumb rule, it is said that you have to attempt generally between 82 to 88, 89 questions to pass in prelims. Not just blindly doing it, but some sense has to be applied, and you have to attempt between 82 to 88, 89 is what generally the people say that you have to attempt. If you are damn confident that 50, 55 questions are 100% right, not even a single mistake, maybe one odd mistake. If the figure is anywhere above 50, 55, 56, 57, do not do any misadventure with your other questions. Just leave it and sit idle. If they allow you to get out of the classroom, get out. Because you have already touched 110, 115 bracket. And if you are a general category also, you are generally in this safe zone. Do not unnecessarily do guessworks. So damn sure, but only the question, the answer is, you are damn sure that all my 60, 58, 57, 56 are correct. If that is there, just close the paper, sit idle, think of CSAT, how to pass the CSAT paper, how to face mathematics or English, whichever is your fear, try to address that particular fear in the paper. Okay? I am sure if you have done your homework well, this year for some reason I don't know, my instinct says that prelims will be easier, mains will be tough. This is my instinct which is saying me. So if that is the case, you pray to the God that this should be true. At least prelims is cleared so that we can start thinking on the mains accordingly. Okay? So anything else you want? 1,000 questions रह गया. Environment and ecology also I have sent it today. Any other subject is left? No, I don't think. terms in history. You ask, tomorrow he'll come. Whatever you want to ask in history, you ask him. Indian history, basically. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? At this stage, no new book. Don't read any new book. Revise your class notes and the textbooks that you have read any number of times, no problem. Any number of times. This is not the time to read the test series, please. Let me tell you this. The class notes, the notes that you have made, and any study material that you have studied, textbook or any study material, revise that only. Okay? Don't venture into any textbooks now. Chalo, thank you.